Hi, and welcome to this video about teaching your child how to blend. I want to talk for a minute about what blending is, and then I want to share 3 strategies that you can use to help your child learn how to blend in a way that isn't confusing or challenging. So blending in phonics is when your child is combining sounds together to make a word. And basically, whenever they're reading, they're blending. When they recognize k, a, and are able to put those sounds together to make the word cat, they're blending. This is a skill that kids can do both spoken and also when they see those letters in their head, they can put those together. And blending is really an important skill for kids to learn in order to learn how to read. But the problem is that blending is also a really tricky skill for kids because it involves really combining everything that they know about letter sounds and being able to remember those letter sounds in their brain and then put them together to make a word. So it's actually a very tricky, complex skill for kids to learn and master. And so today I want to share 3 simple strategies that you can use to help your kids learn how to blend. And the first one is that you want to start with practicing blending just verbally. Take the reading and recognizing of the letter symbols completely out of the equation. So when you're first teaching your kids how to blend, you don't want to have books or reading or any of that involved at all. You want to just be doing word games with your kids where you're telling them, k, a, t, what is that? And then having them listen to those sounds and remember them and put them together. This makes it easier for kids because then they're not trying to look at the letter and remember what that letter sound is, and then remember all of the rules that we have about which letters make which sounds and which situations. It takes all of that completely out of the equation and just helps them focus on hearing the sound, remembering the sound, and then making it into a word. So they're practicing just some of the skills that they'll need in order to do blending when they're reading. But it allows them to practice storing sounds in their working memory and then combining those sounds together to make a word. So definitely start with verbal practice first, just quizzing your kid about those things and asking them to blend the words verbally. The second tip that I have for you is to actually include a visual element when you're working on blending verbally. And the trick that I love to use for this is actually using magnet tiles. So we have these magnet tiles in our house. And what I'll do is I'll say 2 sounds and then stick the tiles together. So if we're practicing blending with compound words, for example, I might say space, ship, and then put the tiles together, and then my child would have to say spaceship. So it's a way to show a child that visual example of you have 2 parts and you stick them together to make a whole. You could use a magic marker and write on the tiles. You could put sticky notes on the tiles to show the words, or you could just have your child remember this one is space, this one is ship, and when you put them together, it makes spaceship. But this is just a really great way to show your child visually that process of combining 2 sounds together to make one word, or 3 sounds, or however many sounds you have. If you don't have magnet tiles, you can do this with index cards that you write on, put far apart and then shove together. Anything that can be separate and then together will help your child see that concept visually of what's happening when they're blending in their head. Now, the final tip that I have for helping your child learn how to blend is to start with the largest units of language possible and then work down to the smallest. So when you're first introducing the concept of blending, you want to start with compound words like what we just used our example of spaceship. So you want to start with space, ship, and then ask your child what that is when you put them together, spaceship. And hopefully your child can remember space and ship and be able to put those 2 together in their head. Once they can successfully blend a compound word, practice lots of them and make sure. But once your child can successfully blend a compound word, then you can move to blending syllables. So a word like burger that has 2 syllables, can they blend burger to make burger? And you can ask them that kind of a question, just space the syllables out as you ask and see if they can connect them together to make a word. You might also want to try to include some 3-syllable words and see if they can remember 3 syllables in their head at the same time once they're really successful with 2 syllables. Once your child can blend syllables, then you can move down to first sound and rest of the word. So that would be separating the first sound from the ending sound and having them blend those two things together. So something like taking the word cat and saying it like this, k, at, and then asking your child to put the first sound onto the rest of the word and combine that together in a blend. So they would be combining k, at to make cat. And then finally, once your child is really comfortable with that beginning sound rhyme blending, then you can blend with individual letters. And you want to start with words that just have two letters, two sounds. So it. And then once your child can remember and blend two letters, then you can increase to a CVC word, for example, consonant, vowel, consonant, a three-letter word, and then move ahead from there. But you want to make sure that your child is really comfortable remembering two sounds before you start to increase it to three sounds or even more than that. And then once your child is really comfortable with this verbal blending, then you can start to look at it on paper with words in their reading book. So hopefully this was helpful to you if your child is stuck with blending. Please feel free to leave any questions or thoughts that you have about blending in the comments, and I would love to hear those.